Today's talk isn't going to be about counting macros, biohacks, and your standard fitness talk. It's going to be about the infrastructure that drives leadership, performance, and execution, especially in high-stakes environments. Because the truth is, your health isn't something that you should just do after work. It's the power source that dictates how you show up for it. So, a little bit about myself. 6 years ago, I was trying to scale my business, and on the outside, everything looked great. I looked like this LinkedIn success story, but on the inside, I was a caffeine-powered corpse in a nice suit, okay? And, I was abusing alcohol at night to deal with the fact I was stressed, I felt lonely. I'd wake up the next day after a terrible sleep and abuse caffeine, stimulants, and anything that I could to really get through the day. And it felt like I was carrying a weighted vest on me every single day. And, I told myself this narrative at the time that this is the price of success. For you to be successful in business, you need to sacrifice your health as much as possible. This is the cost of success, I told myself. And I was right, it did begin to cost me. So I would get onto sales calls and I completely lose my train of thought. I would get to 3 p.m. in the afternoon, and what would happen is I'd be checked out by 3 p.m. because I couldn't concentrate. And I would forget to do follow-up, and I'd miss deadlines because I was so exhausted. And honestly, the biggest lie that I told myself at this time was that it was just a case of a little bit of tiredness. It wasn't just a bit of tiredness. I was under-recovered, overreaching, and overstimulated. And this is when I realized I didn't have a strategy problem, I didn't have a work ethic problem. I had something called a capacity problem. So most people, they try and solve business problems with more tactics. So a faster system, a new playbook, or a fancy productivity hack. But the truth is, if your own internal system is misfiring, none of that stuff is going to stick. At the highest level, it's not about working harder. It's about executing sharper. So clear decisions under pressure, unshakable calm when things go sideways, reliable energy day in, day out, quarter after quarter. And that kind of performance, it doesn't come from a productivity hack. It comes from a regulated system. So your mind and body working together in harmony. Your brain, your body, your nervous system, your fuel. So, after I stopped treating my health like a side quest and, started treating it like the core infrastructure to my business, everything changed. I anchored my sleep around consistent sleep and wake times. I optimized my nutrition for sustainability, but also blood sugar regulation, so I could have a consistent hit of energy throughout the course of the day. And, I made sure that I was training for output, not just aesthetics, okay? So I could have as much energy as possible. And after about 6 weeks, I saw a huge change. No more fog on sales calls, no more 3 p.m. crashes. And, I was getting more work done in 4 hours than I could previously get done in 10 before, which was crazy. But, the most profound part and the best part was, I could walk into rooms differently. I could communicate with more clarity. And I was able to lead from a place of congruence because I didn't need to fake posture or fake presence because I was able to embody the energy that I wanted as a baseline every single day. And it was from this foundation that we began to scale the business. So we built a team, we got more clients coming in, and I was less reactive throughout all the stuff that was going on. And we built a really good amount of momentum. And this was a huge paradigm shift for me because most people, they separate physical health and business performance. And that's a big mistake. Your brain is constantly scanning your body for danger. For example, if you wake up with high levels of inflammation, low levels of testosterone, terrible sleep, it limits your access to executive function. You become reactive. You chase urgency instead of clarity. And you don't really recognize what's happening or realize what's going on until you normalize the fog. And that costs you, right? Quietly, consistently, day after day. So, after working with over 500 clients at companies such as Amazon, Meta, Tinder, Shopify, Accenture, and McKinsey, I've come up with a framework that I give to all of my high-level clients to get them performing at their best through their health. And I'm going to run you through exactly what that looks like today. And I call this the capacity framework. So if you want to take a photo of this and memorize this, this is a really good time to do that. So capacity equals energy times by clarity times by resilience. Okay? And you're probably thinking, well, Oliver, why does this stuff even matter? Well, when your energy drops, you crash. When your clarity drops, you hesitate. And when your resilience drops, you spiral. But what happens when all three of these are dialed in? You lead from calm. You're able to make decisions with clarity, and you're able to scale through the chaos because you've got the capacity to do so. So I'm going to run through all three of these now, and some actionable tips you guys can take away with you here today. So let's start with energy. So energy is your system stability. And energy is not about motivation, it's about biological integrity. So we're talking about things like your cortisol rhythms. We're discussing things like your glucose regulation and things like sleep architecture, getting as much deep and REM sleep as possible. And to give you an example, we had a client who worked with us who was a very successful finance firm owner. And he came to me and he said, Oliver, I get to 3 p.m. in the afternoon and I get this crash and I just can't concentrate. I just feel very foggy. So what we did is we ran some extensive blood work on him. And what we found was really, really interesting. So he had flatline cortisol, high levels of inflammation, low levels of testosterone. So what we did is we rebuilt his system. Okay, we got him consistently sleeping with consistent sleep and wake times, building a system for his nutrition that was around, blood sugar regulation, but also sustainability. And, ensuring that he was training for output, not just aesthetics. And after about 6 weeks, his assistant comes up to him and says, Alex, you're back. Right? And this is what I mean when I say your body and your health is the infrastructure that your business runs on. So what I want to give you now are some tactical tips that you can take away with you today and start executing with straight away. So the first one is, no email in the first 90 minutes of your day. Now, if you guys are running your own firm or leading your company, you probably have to deal with everybody else's problems all of the time for most of the day, right? Whether that's putting out fires within the business, leading your team, dealing with client issues, and maybe you get home and it's a case of you've got to look after the family and your kids and you've got those priorities. So carving a short amount of time in the morning that's dedicated to yourself can really protect that clarity window and give you that energy for the day. This could be no email in the first 90 minutes. It could be 2 to 3 bullet points of gratitude journaling to give yourself a setup for the day for success. It could also be a short bodyweight workout, right? 15 to 20 minutes, nothing too crazy. That gets the blood pumping, it gets the endorphins releasing. The goal with this, is not to do an Instagram influencer 4-hour morning routine, right? Where you're sticking your face in ice water and rubbing banana peel on your face, right? It's a case of giving yourself a short period in the morning that's dedicated to you. Because if you can win the morning, you can win the day. The second one that's really important is to start meals with protein and fibre. So, what do maybe most people do when it comes to breakfast and starting things out of the day? They pile as much carbohydrates, processed sugars and processed foods into their body, and they get this huge energy spike in the morning. But what happens by noon is they're sluggish, they're checked out by 3 p.m. So a much better option that you guys can do is to start your meals with protein and fibre, because this is going to balance that blood sugar regulation within your body. And when that happens, you're going to not get that 3 p.m. slump. You're going to be able to make decisions easier, faster, and be more productive. So that's a really good one to prevent those glucose roller coasters. So the third one I put down before the event of last night, so I'm not going to lecture you on deep sleep after what's happened, but sleep really is the foundation when it comes to your overall health and performance. And one of the best things that you can do to quick win is to go for a short walk in the morning and get sunlight on your skin. Now what that does is it releases a key ingredient called melatonin. And when that melatonin is released, that gives you access to quicker and deeper sleep later in the evening. So something as small as that can be really, really useful to prioritize. And we always say to our clients, sleep is the foundation. And you're probably feeling it today, right? If you have a bad meal, it's okay. You miss a workout, no biggie. But if you have a bad night's sleep, 2-3 hours, that whole day can get ruined. And we've all been there and know what that feels like. So yeah, these three things are really good leverage points that you can start with. We're now going to move on to the second part of the equation, which is clarity. So clarity is your ability to make fast, confident decisions under pressure. And most people, they think that hesitation is a mindset issue. It's not. It's actually a metabolic drag. And Stanford researchers studied judges who were evaluating parole decisions. And what they found was really interesting. So at the beginning portion of the day, the approval rate for parole was super high. But as the day went on, as it progressed, the approval rate plummeted. Which is interesting. You've got the same judge, you've got the same law. But what was the difference? Well, it was the fact that they had huge amounts of decision fatigue and couldn't make decisions from a place of clarity. And to give you an example, we had a client who came to us who was a fintech executive, again, very successful. But he came to me and he said, Oliver, I've been finding that when I get into these meetings and these high-stakes moments, I hesitate and, somebody else steps in. So what we did is we wanted to build that clarity back again for him. Again, blood sugar regulation through his diet, we got him sleeping more consistently, and just ensuring that he was doing short, sharp, and effective workouts that were sustainable for him. And what happened again after about 6 to 8 weeks? His clarity returned. His leadership changed. And, everyone around noticed, right? They began to see him as that decisive, competent leader that he always was. Clarity is both mental sharpness and nervous system regulation. So, when your body is under a constant load, it loses access to that higher order thinking. So the goal with this isn't to, work harder or do more. It's about removing the interference that's in the way that's preventing you from making clear decisions. And, this stuff isn't theory, okay? This is backed by science. So that study I just referenced there, the Stanford Zinger 2011, decision fatigue drops clarity under pressure. But there's also a Columbia study, BEST 2010, which says, training boosts executive function and stress regulation. So the science is clear on this. Your biology underpins your leadership. We're now going to move on to the final part of the equation, which is resilience, okay? And resilience, it isn't about how much you can take, but more about how fast you reset. And we had a client who came to us who was a venture capital partner, and over the past 5 to 10 years, his business has scaled tremendously. He made a lot of money, he was very happy. But one thing that he noticed about himself was he was very reactive. Okay, so he said to me, Oliver, one bad email in the morning will just completely derail me for the rest of the day. So what we did is we began building his resilience through training. Again, 2 to 3 short workouts a week is all that he needed to do. And after about a month, his sleep improved. His nervous system stopped overreaching. So he was able to take a punch in the morning, something could happen, and he'd be back in the next hour or two, ready to tackle the next problem. So things like training, building that tension can have a huge impact on building the resilience for your body and for success. So what are some tactical tips that you here today can take away with you? So, you want to train for clarity, not just aesthetics. So 2 to 3 resistance workouts a week can be great. You can throw in some cardio. Again, a push-pull leg split if you want to do resistance is good. You can even do a full body workout 3 days a week. But the key with this is to do something that's short, sharp, and intense. The biggest mistake that I see people make when it comes to their health is they go 0 to 100 very quickly, okay? So they go into the gym and, they carry around the gallon jugs and they want to be the next Mr. Olympia training 2 hours a day. Or they watch a David Goggins video and decide that they want to run a marathon. And, there's nothing wrong with that, but when that deadline is hit or you start to get burned out, you stop. And you go through these yo-yos where you exercise, you stop, you exercise, you stop, and there's no longevity there. So I always recommend 2 to 3 sustainable workouts a week. And you want to think of this as, the way that you do your workouts today, the way you do it for the next 5 to 10 years. It needs to be sustainable around travel. If you're prioritizing family and other things, you want to make sure this is short and sharp. So those things become very, very important when it comes to your training. So, your presence is felt before you even speak. When your health is optimized, your nervous system is balanced, that signal that you send out to the world is clear. You're like, I've got this. I'm in control. But when you're overstimulated and overreaching, that signal gets scrambled. You hesitate. You leak credibility. And that costs you, quietly, consistently, day after day. Leadership, it isn't posture. It's presence. And presence starts in your nervous system. High performers, they don't work harder or push harder. They build systems. And no, that doesn't mean waking up at 4 a.m., eating raw liver and getting into an ice bath until your soul leaves your body, okay? High performance isn't a circus act. It's strategic consistency done brilliantly. And the same way that you guys have systems within your business to be successful, you need to have systems for your health as well. You need to run your body and your health like you would run a business. So you need a system for your sleep architecture, consistent sleep and wake times, to get as much deep REM sleep as possible, and hopefully not get woken up by fire alarms. Meal timing, a system for your meal timing that balances sustainability, but also balances blood sugar regulation, so you can get that consistent hit of energy throughout the course of the day. You need a system for your training, so a system that allows you to have short, sharp, and effective workouts, so you can have the energy, the clarity, and resilience to perform at your best. And you need a system for your recovery. So, when you're not training, when you're not working, what are you doing to take care of yourself? Is it a case of going for walks in nature to get a mental reset on the weekends when you've got some time? Is it recovery things such as sports massages, some sauna use, cold exposure? All of these things can increase your recovery, but also your longevity and your age as you get older. So these are not gimmicks, these are not hacks, these are not fads. These are leverage points to sustainable peak performance. So I just want to round off by saying, if you're building something that matters, your physical state isn't optional. It's the multiplier. Your body drives your state drives your decisions, and your decisions, they shape everything. And if I could go back to that old version of myself, the guy that was relying on willpower, abusing caffeine and stimulants to get through the day, I wouldn't tell him to work harder. I'd give him a system. A nervous system that was balanced, a body that could handle pressure, and a brain that could think clearly without the crash. Because personally, that's what changed everything. So we are running 10-minute performance audits in the exhibit hall at booth 406. So you guys can come through if you like, and if something that you heard today resonated with you, and you're like, Oliver, yeah, I've been running on fumes as well. I need to start taking care of my health. Then, let's fix that. Because when your health is optimized, your nervous system is balanced, you don't just feel better, you lead better, you live better, and everyone around you rises with you. So feel free to scan that QR code as well, and that's going to take you to a place where you can do a short 2-minute performance audit that's going to rank your energy, your clarity, and your resilience, and give you a score out of 100. And basically from that, you can come over to our booth, and me and my team will give you a free mini game plan that you can take away with you today in regards to your health, so you can start optimizing effectively. So I want to say a big thank you for all of you guys coming here on your lunch break to listen to this talk. I'm going to be around now for the next 5 to 10 minutes if you've got any questions regarding health, performance, or anything I've spoken about today. And I want to say a big thank you for all giving your attention after last night's chaos. Okay? So thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of the golf while you're here.